guys, it's Gracie from Small Worlds Big Adventures, and Scott is with me, and today we're going to do something a little different and look at some r/stories from Reddit. So we have a story from RPG Horror Stories from user Mr. MacYeet or Mr. MC Yeet. DM banishes first-time player after they make first-time player mistakes. Last week, I, a first-time player, played in my first ever TTRPG and D&D campaign, jumping in partway into Curse of Strahd, in which the DM made me feel isolated, bullied, and like an NPC of the week. There will be 3 parts before game start, during game, and banishment. So before the game started, I arrived at the DM's house, who I went to university with before he dropped out. And we had a rough start, but I considered us friends. But after how he treated me, now I feel abused. There are 3 other players. The Druid, who is my best friend and has been here since the start of the campaign. And 2 guys I don't know, Warlock and Paladin, who will both be referred to as kidnappers, because they play kidnappers. I introduced myself and I show my character, a halfling fighter cavalier, who rides a mastiff as a mount, Bernie, which is super cute. I chat with the other players for an hour as the DM plans out the entire session and my introduction. This is apparently a common occurrence with this DM. During this time, I openly state, since DM is roleplay focused, I would like to have a friendly dog that can roleplay better than a giant rat or a pony, and do my best to learn and memorize the other characters. Eventually, the DM states he has finished planning and states that I will be a guard working for the evil church that the party has to burn down. I stop him and ask, "You want me to go against the party?" He then states that I don't have to agree with the party. I saw this as a horrible thing to do. Not only in my first ever game, I am pitted against the party, I am also encouraged to go against them, and I must do high-level roleplay to go from good guy. And I must do high-level roleplay to go from bad guy to good, since I don't want to be a bad guy. During the game, the session starts and the DM attempts to start the session with the older player's perspective, opening with, Druid, you wake up next to Carla, who you spend the previous day with, implying sexual relations with the character. Me confused on who Carla is, asked, does the Druid have a girlfriend? Who is Carla? That's when the DM explains that Carla is the party's adopted child, which is when I asked, where am I? What am I doing? Am I nearby? That's when the DM explained my character's location, which on review was an NPC assignment. I was stationed outside the church. I have a shift from sunrise to sundown. I live, eat, and stay at the church, and don't meet the party at the tavern, nor will I have the ability to meet them, since they must come to me. I only get paid gold when I show loyalty, and my fellow guard has already been punished for disloyalty, and I have never met anyone of importance except for the Archbishop, the bad guy who runs the church. The topper is that I am given the description of kidnappers, Paladin and Warlock, and must oppose them and prevent them from entering the church. At the same time, the party recap among themselves as I was updated. They then do some roleplay with the DM at the tavern and then roleplaying a meeting with the mayor while I sit on the sideline as they roleplay, doing my best to take notes. After half an hour, the party arrive at the church and I finally get to roleplay. Druid metagames and says she doesn't know the kidnappers, and I let her in. The kidnappers attempt to roleplay with me and convince me to change sides and join them, because they also don't want me to be a bad guy. Before I shoo them off, because that's my job, I tell them I will meet them after my shift to help them look for some missing people and see their evidence against the church. After which I report to the Archbishop and told I will be rewarded for my loyalty, but they can't pay me now. I then roleplay with the Druid and I insist that I walk her home since she was followed here by kidnappers. And I don't know she's capable, which would be metagaming. She denies. This was my attempt for a good reason to leave the church since I can't bribe or lie. No deception. To follow my fellow guards who are paid in loyalty. After which we time skip to the end of my shift. I am told I have a curfew at 9 p.m. and must lie to my fellow guard so that I can meet the party at the tavern. I bring my dog into the bar since I'm entering a tavern where the kidnappers stay, which triggers an event with Carla where she states she is scared of my dog because the mayor has the same kind of dogs. Okay, some truth circles and evidence later, I believe everyone, and the session ends with me returning before curfew. I was upset that I did nothing and had to spend the whole time role-playing to be a good guy. I'm saddened by no one liking my dog, Carla being scared of it, and was so upset that I wrote a whole new character so I won't be seen as a villain by the party and NPCs. I planned my death for the next session so I can play a bard that allows more roleplay opportunities. The Banishment. The same time next week, I am told the sessions are fortnightly, and I received the following message from the DM. DM, actually, I do need to discuss with you about some of the comments you made during the previous session. I'll be flat with you. Some of them were inappropriate. The main ones are asking whether or not Druid character has a girlfriend, which is, to clarify, inappropriate, especially given the context of the session, and is in no way relevant to the situation. Insisting on walking Druid's character back even when she said that she could look after herself repeatedly, which should have been listened to and not had the point pushed. My main gripe is the first one, and unfortunately it is not something that I can overlook. There's also the issue of attempting to play the main character in a team/co-op game. I do not have the patience, nor am I particularly willing to accommodate such behaviors. Given all of this, my decision is as follows. You will only be attending one more session at my table, and nothing beyond that. I am firm on this. That's the end of the message. This relates to me not knowing or understanding who Carla was from the DM's introduction, me attempting to roleplay away from the church, and me apparently bringing my dog into the tavern, which was an abuse of power, metagaming, and spotlighting. I attempt to defend my actions when he then accuses me of metagaming. Druid did it more. Abuse of power and making players uncomfortable. I contacted the Druid and they informed me that the DM asked the players if I offended anyone, and they said I didn't, meaning the only one who was offended was the DM. He said me being a villain was good roleplay material, which is a hard ask for a first-time player, and compared my player's situation to Nazis during World War II and felt justified putting my character in a difficult position since it gave the players a benefit. They then continued to defend their actions and dismiss my arguments without apology. Not only did the DM isolate me from the players and make me feel like a villainous NPC, they then punished me instead of warning me of my actions, not caring for me being a first-time player. But I felt like a jerk and like I was the problem. I felt sick and abused. The next day, I discussed with my friends and colleagues, and they agree with me. The DM bullied me and did things I was uncomfortable with, and they intended on me being an NPC, and that the DM did not care about the aspects that were important to my character. A colleague felt so bad I was invited to try a TTRPG that would be starting up soon, even though they were at max capacity. I then informed the DM that our friendship is over and I won't attend any more sessions. Too long, didn't read. DM's terrible introduction and planning made me fumble around his campaign like an NPC and accused me of being an asshole. Is he correct?
I mean, there's a lot of red flags here. There's a lot of things to kind of tug at too. Part of it is, and sometimes a lot of these stories you'll get where we won't hear the other sides. It's hard to say what's on the mind of the DM going through this. Even then, there's a lot of stuff I think that is not great coming from that DM. The aspect of introducing a character for a first-time player as a villain or on the side of the bad guys is clumsy at best. That is a thing that I would feel comfortable doing with one of my more experienced players if it's something they were interested in trying to do.
Yeah.
But for a first-time player, I mean, I've played in groups where that would just get that character killed.
Oh, for sure.
No question about it. That's bad. It feels like the DM had what they felt was an interesting idea and didn't kind of think it all the way through. And then when it started to not work out great, just doubled down on their plan instead of trying to fix it. The obvious fix there was and I mean, maybe that's on the druid's player, but let the guard come home with the druid so that they can then start working on integrating into the group. Why they didn't do that, I don't know.
Metagaming.
Yeah, that's, I mean, you want to do what you can in that situation to bring that character into the rest of the group. Because again, and they mention it in their story, if they're not part of the group, then they're going to be missing out on a lot of literally their very first role-playing experience just sitting there on the sidelines. And that's bad. That's bad GMing.
No, absolutely. And it kills me because, like, by introducing her character, at least the way she does in this, it gives the impression of a friendly character. Like, yeah, she wanted a friendly, fluffy dog for her mount, not a rat, not a pony. And then you pigeonhole her into a villain and a pawn of this, like, evil dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird choice. Like, bad choice. It's not even a weird choice. It's a bad choice. Again, that's something you do with an experienced player who is interested in playing that story thread, not somebody who doesn't have the experience and doesn't have the interest in it. Obviously, they didn't. The thing with the dog, like the scene with that's also very weird. You're letting them use the dog as a mount, and then as soon as that dog is in any way introduced into the campaign, you make it a problem.
Yeah.
Again, that can be an interesting opportunity for role playing if it were an experienced player. When it's an inexperienced player, you're just making things rougher on them for literally their first experience for no real good reason, it feels like. The Carla thing, I feel like...
creepy gross.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, the way OP describes it makes it come off creepy. I wonder if what the DM's issue with them was, I believe the OP mentions the druid as a female character.
Yeah.
Carla definitely sounds like a female name. I wonder if he thought OP was being homophobic.
I mean, I could see that.
Depending on, like, what the OP was asking about, is this their girlfriend?
Yeah.
That could come off as that, whereas OP is presumably saying, are they in bed with a kid that they've rescued and taken on as an adoptive kid? Because that is gross on a lot of levels.
So many levels. But even if, like, that's their concern, at least in what is shared with us from the DM's communication, he doesn't go, you were homophobic, like, or you seemed uncomfortable with this, like, lesbian dynamic.
Well, offensive. I think the term they use is offensive. I believe that's what the OP was saying. And again, that's why hearing a bit from, like, the DM's standpoint might shed some light on some of what was going on here. But even if that's the case, there's just a lot of red flags on that point. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be at that table.
No. I know it's, like, such a little thing, but it literally kills me that he preps right there in front of everyone. It makes everyone sit for an hour while he figures stuff out.
It's hard to comment on that. Sometimes an hour is a long time, but I've started adventures a little bit late. Usually letting people kind of talk at the table and go over my notes, just because I don't know. In a lot of ways, like going out on stage or something, you kind of need to psych yourself up to begin doing that, and sometimes that's taking that step is a little bit rough. But yeah, prepping for an hour before you begin play is weird.
With your players there. Like, I'm sure every DM is like up until the last minute doing stuff.
Yeah. That's definitely what I'm... you're perfectly right. With your players there, then still going over, I don't know, your notes or reading through the book or what you're doing. That's wasting people's time, I mean, is what that is.
For real. I do find it really intriguing that, like, despite being so offended by what she did, and looking back, phrasing he had used was inappropriate. So again, could be that like aspect.
Some of this could be explained by the GM just in their head has this narrative going on, and like a couple of things trigger him, and they don't take the time to kind of like really work out what the issue with this player was. Even if you give the DM the benefit of the doubt on some of those, there's still just some pretty heavy red flags in this story.
He was so offended, but he's like, you can come back for one more session.
Yeah, like you can come, like that's a weird response to anything. I certainly wouldn't come back for one more session.
No, absolutely not.
That's just dumb.
I think in general, the takeaway should be like, how do we make our tables supportive of new players as they come in? Because it's a lot to take in, like all the rules and the dynamics. I remember when I first played, I was so unsure of everything I was doing. Yeah,
not just new players to your table, but also a new player to
the game.
Both this game and just, it sounds like, role-playing games in general. Like, it can be intimidating. Exciting. I remember when I was a kid and first started playing, but intimidating. And especially if you're playing with people, it sounds like they knew two of the four players, but not the other two. You know, it can be rough, and you want to be able to onboard those players in as comfortable a way as you can and in as welcoming a way as. Curse of Strahd is not a welcoming campaign, especially halfway through it. But could have done a lot better on that front.
Well, we so appreciate you guys listening to the stories. This is new for us, so if you want to hear more board game role-playing stories and hear our perspectives on it, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit subscribe, and you'll see more game reviews and gamekeeper tips and all of that.
Comment below if you have your own opinions on the stories we discussed today. We definitely would be interested in hearing what you have to say.
And if there's nothing else, we'll see you next time.